Tremendous piece, what a tremendous article that Charles Boehm did this morning on Montego Bay United head coach Tim Hankinson. And here's the man that wrote that piece, Charles Boehm, joining us now. Charles, welcome.
Oh, thanks again for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Pleasure's mine. Great piece. Got up this morning, had my coffee with me, my biscuit, and I was all set to read this wonderful piece. Interesting, and it was really, really enjoyable reading the travels, the journeys that this head coach has endured over his years. Tell us about this gentleman and why he continues to do this in this age of his life. And you mentioned a part there that he didn't get paid in one stint where I think he went to Brazil. Am I right, Charles?
Yeah, that's correct. He, when his time in MLS ended, when he left the Colorado Rapids, he decided that he wanted to get his hands dirty in a different system and learn a little bit more about how Brazil grows players, how they produce players with such flair and creativity with regularity. So he volunteered with Figueirense, the club down there, for 6 months as just part of their staff, a fly on the wall to learn. And it's a very admirable attitude, and I think it's one that a lot of North American coaches can learn from. We tend to grow up and stay here our entire careers in terms of the typical North American coach. And Hankinson has been all over, coached in several different countries, and it's really benefited his approach to the craft.
And is that a tip you think he would give to the youngsters out there that want to get in the coaching trade, is go out all over the world and learn different parts of the game from different countries? Is that something that he mentioned? Did he mention maybe some other things, possibly attitude and the mindset that needs to open up and not be so closed off to, you know, some of them say, I know it all and I don't need to learn? Charles? Oh, we lost Charles. That's unfortunate. We just lost him. He must have been on a cell phone. We'll get him back. We've had a real fun first half hour here on Red Card tonight. Our producer, our producer Sean Truckle is going to get a hold of Charles Boehm, and we'll continue on with that. Hopefully he'll get him on the line instead of us taking a commercial break. But an interesting story here, Montego Bay United head coach Tim Hankinson, and I'd like to get his response to that if he did have an opportunity to ask him that, because I think it is tremendous to hear from him that he said that it was important to go to Brazil and to learn. And I think we have again located Charles. Charles, just before you got cut out there, I was asking you that obviously he said that he learned a lot by going to Brazil and learned many things. But I think today's young coach, and I don't know if you asked them this, is they're very close-minded. A lot of them feel that they know what they have to do, that they don't really need to travel and learn and take advice from others. Did you get a chance to ask him some of the tips that he would like to give the youngsters today?
Yeah, I thought I wanted to get his sense on North American coaching in general, the state of it, and what he sees with a little bit of a different perspective. And I thought it was very interesting. He specifically mentioned, and we're talking here more at the pro level to be sure, but he mentioned the experiences of coaching, and he's coached in India and Iceland and places like that. And he said American coaches, we were speaking in the American context, but I think it applies to Canada as well. American coaches don't have to experience, typically don't get exposure to a relegation battle, for example. He said, where if you lose this particular match, you'll probably be fired, your club will be hurt dramatically. You absolutely have to get a result in this moment. He also talked about the speed with which coaches are hired and fired in other countries may seem hasty and short-sighted, but he said in Brazil, for example, they're doing that specifically to get something out of their team, to wring a certain number of points. And they might use 5 coaches in a year or two, but they're doing that consciously, feeling that that's what draws the most out of their squad. Not necessarily the best approach, but one that American coaches don't necessarily get, because we tend to give our coaches a lot more leeway here in general. I think that's an interesting point that he made, for sure.
Now, you mentioned he coached in India and in Iceland, two very diverse, two very different countries in culture and many different ways. I wonder if you had a chance, Charles, to talk to him about the pay of a coach and of a player compared to North America and other parts of the world, especially going to Iceland and India.
He's clearly experienced, Tim has experienced a wide range of working conditions for both himself and his players, but he generally had high praise for MLS and the North American domestic league. Not so much, we didn't get explicitly into topics about pay, but the infrastructure that we enjoy is, generally really solid facilities, medical training, all the things that can help athletes produce at their best. You can't take that for granted in some places. And you talked about seeing countries that were 20 to 30 years behind where we are. And I think we tend to think of ourselves as a little bit behind the curve, and in many ways we are. But there's some areas where North America is well ahead of the world and has built an infrastructure that other countries don't have. And he's certainly experiencing that in Jamaica, where there's a deep culture of soccer and football, but not necessarily the same resources that we take for granted. And so it's a different sort of challenge for players and coaches.
Now, let's continue on that vein quickly before we let you go. I've been doing the PA work at the USL TFC2 squad this year, and a lot of these USL squads are quite good taken care of financially in their travels. They're not having to, as we read here, Montego Bay United head coach Tim Hankinson specifically saying about financial restraints and having food being taken with them from home, being made up from friends and family. Local friends picking them up at the airport to take them to the games. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is something out of the Bad News Bears type of Little League story, Charles.
It's true. Even the richest, most well-established Jamaican clubs and across the Caribbean in general are working on a shoestring budget that we can hardly imagine here in the States. It's amazing, in fact, that CONCACAF creates a situation where they can compete on anything approaching a level playing field with U.S., Canadian, or Mexican clubs. It's a great opportunity, but it's also a huge challenge for these clubs from these nations. So there's a great perspective to be learned here, and when they come to RFK Stadium here in D.C. to play D.C. United, apparently they're going to arrive in 7 or 8 different privately owned vehicles, not even a team bus, to save money. So certainly a great story and a great lesson for everybody in this region.
Well, a great piece by you, Charles, and I implore everyone to go and read it. It's on MLSsoccer.com. Listen, Charles, I've had many guys on my show for many years, going back to radio and here on Red Card for the last 5 years. And many good people have put up real good pieces about the X's and O's of the games, the wins, the losses, and the injuries. But for myself personally, I enjoy more stories like this, true life stories about clubs and coaches with their journeys today. And I think that was fantastic of you to put a piece together like this, because I don't think a lot of people in North America really grasp and understand in other parts of the world how hard it is to financially put a team together and travel places, unlike we here complain about the field not being in great condition. So good job on you, and again, I implore everyone to go and read it at MLSsoccer.com. Charles, thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your night and enjoy the game as well, my friend.
Thanks for your kind words. I hope everybody has a great evening.
That is Charles Boehm of MLSsoccer.com. As I said, go read his piece. I love his piece. It's a piece that I think more and more guys need to do. Things like this that we really enjoy in the game. We're going to go